Here's the Canadian dollar, a look at the Canadian dollar as we get ready to speak with Lana Payne. She is head of Unifor, the largest private sector union in the country. And there you see an interesting reaction of currency markets. The loonie began in negative territory, actually traded up in the middle portion of the day, back into negative territory. And as you can see now, a bit of relief with the loonie trading at 69.4 cents US. So the currency markets not making a really a decisive call on those tariffs. Of course, currency markets are forward looking. And since the middle portion of January or so, the Canadian dollar has lost significant ground versus the US dollar. Also, only 3 times over the past 20 years has the Canadian dollar been priced at less than 70 cents. You see the Canadian dollar over the past year and that decline that we have seen since the fall and more markedly from the middle of February, I should say. Well, let's go now to a very prominent Labour leader in Canada. We're joined by Lana Payne. She is National President of Unifor. Unifor, of course, is the largest private sector union in the country, prominently representing auto workers, among others. Lana, thanks for joining us. I'm sure you've had a busy day talking to your members on this. I'm sure you've talked to them in advance of today as well. How are they feeling about this tariff situation?
Very concerned, obviously, but what I would say is the flip side of concerned. There is incredible solidarity and resolve among our membership right now in terms of the approach that Canada has to take to push back and fight against these tariffs. We all understand that it's going to be a very challenging time that could have large and negative implications for Canadian workers. We know that. But the reality is we have no choice here but to fight for our country and to fight for the jobs that we have been building in this country over generations.
So as we all know, the government of Canada, as expected, immediately responded with a broad series of Canadian tariffs on imported U.S. goods and is promising to step that up in the future if it deems necessary. What is your view and the view of your members on Ottawa's response today?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is one part of the response that we need to make right now. The retaliatory tariffs in and of themselves are necessary. That's one piece. There are non-tariff measures that we can also take. Some of the provinces obviously have been stepping up to do some of that. There are many others that we can also implement. And in doing so, build a stronger and more resilient Canadian economy in the process. But there's going to be difficult days ahead. And that also means that the government has to step up here with robust supports for workers, but also for the industries that will be impacted the hardest by this trade war.
Are your members worried about layoffs? Are they worried that the companies they work for may suffer enough that those companies feel they need to lay off workers?
Of course, that is the biggest concern right now, is that we could end up with a reduction in production. We could end up with closures of workplaces, temporary or otherwise. All of this is playing out in workplaces across Canada today. It's absolutely outrageous that it had to get to this point. But sometimes you need to have this kind of a Donnybrook, because that's what it's going to be like, in order to bring things to a head and to make sure that American workers and Americans are paying attention to how damaging this is going to be for them as well. And we have to get to a point where we can turn this around and eventually get to a negotiating table and work out a deal.
Do you talk at all to your sisters and brothers in the labor movement in the United States about all of this?
Yeah, not in the last couple of days, that's for sure. I've been focusing clearly on our own members here in Canada, on what Canadian workers need right now, and what we need governments and employers to be doing to respond. And I would say in the coming days, we could see some very, very challenging decisions being made by corporations in this country. But I would also say to them, you have to play the long game here. This is going to be a period of time in which stage. We're into a trade war. We're all going to come out of it the other side. And we want to make sure that we're maintaining a strong Canadian economy through that process. But also, this is a reset for us in Canada. We have to think about how we use the tools and the resources and the leverage that we have in this country to build a stronger economy for the future, so we don't get caught in these kinds of situations ever again.
Okay, we have less than a minute left, but one thing the union wants is enhanced income supports for workers. Very briefly, what might those enhanced supports look like?
Obviously, right now, the way the employment insurance system is, it's not up to the task to help and support enough workers. We need to see benefit improvements and access to benefits improved. And obviously, we have to look at how we keep Canadians working through this process as well. And that involves a different kind of programming from the government.
Lana Payne, National President of Unifor, thank you very much for making some time for us today. And that does it for
Thanks.
The Close today.